Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back today with a deck profile of my new Zombie Banish Psychic deck. So this actually had a lot of different inspirations. Part of it was people saying, oh, you're using Brilliant Fusion too much, which I definitely agree with. I've been trying to get away from it, but I mean, it was just way too easy to come up with really cool ideas that take advantage of that engine. But on top of that, for a while, I've been wanting to use Serene Psychic Witch with cards like Torrential Tribute, and now that that's finally at 3 with the February list, I'll be able to make this deck. So I threw it all together, powered it up with the zombie engine, and it turns out to have just enough synergy to be a lot of fun to play. So as always, this is going to be a let's build. I'm going to go through all the card choices and build this step by step for you in terms of the concept, the tech, all these ideas that I have as I build the deck. But if you just want to see the alphabetical profile, that is at the end of the video, and I have a timestamp to it down in the description box and in the comment section below, pinned to the top for your convenience as always. And then if you have any questions after that, you can always go and check out the middle part of the video where we go and explain things. So without further ado, let's build Zombie Banish Psychics. In any of my deck profiles, the first thing I like doing is establishing the theme. We chose Zombie Banish Psychic, and so we have to take a look at the two deck cores that kind of bring this theme together. We'll start off with the zombies, as the name suggests. So this is the Shiranui Solitaire engine a lot of you guys are familiar with in Lightsworns and Shiranuis themselves. So these are your Lone Fire Blossom Solitaire you tribute to go and summon your Uni-Zombie, who is a zombie tuner with 0 defense, 1300 attack, level 3, and he has 2 level manipulation effects. The first is you can discard a card in order to go and target a monster, increase its level by 1. So that's pretty good. It can even interfere with your opponent's plays if they're like constantly making rank 4s, make one into a 5, and then they're forced to link with it or something, I guess. That's an interesting effect in this deck because you have some other zombies you're willing to pitch at times, and you're also able to use this to get psychics into the graveyard, which we'll talk about in a bit. You need to have your psychic engines starting up. And then Mizuki is the other thing that you'll usually want to use with either of its effects. So its second effect is you can just yard a zombie from the deck. You can't attack with anything that's not a zombie for that turn, but you can easily then go banish Mizuki to bring back your Solitaire. This is 4, and you make a level 8 Synchro, which is easily going to be Psy-Framelord Omega in this case, because Omega then in the standby phase can put your Mizuki back in the graveyard. So then you bring back your Uni-Zombie, put another Mizuki in the graveyard the next turn, bring back your Solitaire, and look, you have another Omega. So now you can take cards out of your opponent's hand, put them in the graveyard, you do the Omega loop. These guys, don't forget, are psychics, so we're actually going to be able to use them on top of everything Omega does already. This engine just makes sure we have access to Omega a lot more and kind of turns this into Omega deck. And on top of that, don't forget, the cool thing with Omega is if he happens to die because your opponent kaijus him or whatever, he does have that recycling ability, and a lot of times with this engine repopulating itself so easily, you're going to be able to set up another free Omega summon if this thing happens to go down. But I definitely like this little engine. It's got 3 cards to 4 in terms of what you want to draw and what you don't, but these guys aren't bad. We have discard costs in Hush Psychic Cleric and all that on the psychic side, and then these are 3 very fast ways to kickstart your engine, kind of like 3 emergency teleports on this side. And then I also feel comfortable playing the 3 Ash Blossom with this because now, as zombies, you can just bring them back with Mizuki as well, and that helps you make a lot of plays based on the tech choices that we will choose as well. So this is the zombie side. Then we take a look at the psychic side. So we have Emergency Teleport is our main searcher. Unfortunately, it's at 1, but basically lets us summon any level 3 or lower psychic for the turn. It gets banished at the end of the turn, but that rarely ever happens. The cool thing is you can use this to special summon tuners, non-tuners, whatever combo piece you need, and so it's very flexible. So if this card ever comes back to more than 1, then I'm definitely gonna be on top of that. And then the next best thing is Serene Psychic Witch, who is the same thing but in monster form and admittedly very, very slow. So that's what we're gonna have to address as a challenge today. Psychic Witch has 1400 attack, 1200 defense, and is a level 3 Earth Psychic. And when she's destroyed from the field in any way, battle, card effect, anything, and hits the graveyard, you get to banish a psychic with 2000 or less attack from your deck, and then in the following standby phase, bring it to the field as a special summon. So the thing with that is that's the next turn. So if I crash this into my opponent, I can go and summon a Ghost Ogre for my opponent's turn and cut them off that way, because don't forget, she's a hand trap, but she also works from the field, which is very powerful for the psychic type. I don't know why Ghost Ogre is a psychic and not a zombie or a fiend, but you know, whatever. We're going to take advantage of that psychic typing. Or you can go and, if she gets killed by battle during your opponent's turn, or with your own cards during your opponent's turn, you could summon Esper Girl, who, when she's banished and summoned, lets you go take the top card of your deck, banish it face down with Pot of Desires ruling. We're allowed to take a peek at what that is. And then when she's sent to the graveyard, as long as she didn't take a detour to like hand or Xyz land or wherever else, if she's sent to the grave by Synchro, Xyz, or Synchro, Link, Battle, whatever, Tribute, you're able to claim that card to your hand, and that doesn't miss timing. So that's really cool because that helps you make your plays either gaining advantage or at least not losing any advantage. So Esper Girl is really nice there. Don't forget you can make Naturia Beast with these, which is a nice pair of levels there. And then to make sure we can really make full use of Esper Girl, we play 2 Clerics and 1 Silent Psychic Wizard. So both of these have the same effect, just different triggers, and they're basically different versions of the same card. So Clerics have 2100 defense but no attack, and they shift to defense when summoned. Wizard has 1900 attack but 0 defense. This is level 3, level 4, both Earth Psychics, so you can make a lot of cool things like Beast and Mrs. Radiant with them. And their ability lets you banish Esper Girl or any other psychic monster, even Omega or other synchro monsters, by meeting their triggers. So Wizard, you just normal summon, boom, banish your card, and then when he hits the graveyard, you get the card, no missing timing, which is really cool, but it's only on that normal summon. So not only can you not bring it out with the emergency teleport because he's level 4, but you can't bring him out with these cards, including Witch anyway, because you wouldn't gain his effect. That's where Cleric comes in, because Cleric, although he takes a discard cost to trigger his effect and banish a psychic monster, you can bring him out with any of these 4 starter cards, and then you're able to go and do the exact same thing. And the Esper Girl kind of cancels out that discard here, so that's also a nice interaction. I only play a total of 3 of these guys because, as I mentioned, you need a psychic in the graveyard. In the Brilliant Fusion builds of this, I was easily able to send, you know, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit to the graveyard, and I felt pretty comfortable being able to reliably yard something for these guys, and so I was playing a full 3 Clerics and 2 Wizards. This build, though, unless you get Uni-Zombie, which isn't even the best way of getting a Psychic to the grave because that took your normal summon, it's not the best thing to start off with. I'd rather start off with Witch or Solitaire, and that's why we're playing a total of 3, so we end up getting them, or we could search, you know, just the Cleric out. But I wouldn't recommend going too heavy onto this side of things if you don't have a reliable way of getting your Psychic to the graveyard. Alternatively, you could play 3 Ghost Ogres. I just play 2 because that once per turn clause works whether it's from the hand or field for that effect. And so, again, I just feel like it clogs too much. It saturates when you have all these free special summons off Psychics. I only really needed 2. 3 is good if you want to see it more often, but that's why we're playing the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring instead, so now we have a total of 5 cards where we can hinder our opponent's plays during their turn. And then the last little tech on the Psychic side here is the Psychic Jumper. This card lets you go and creature swap off your opponent's monsters and your Psychics that aren't Psychic Jumper. So the cool thing is, usually what I do is I get Witch killed and I summon the Psychic Jumper. And then I'm going to talk about it in a little more detail in a bit, but I have Crane in the deck. So Crane we could summon, bring back the Witch, and then we could trade the Witch to our opponent. These can make like a Naturia Beast or a Mrs. Radiant or whatever. Could just be 2 monsters for a bigger play, and then we can kill the Witch, claim a free card in the process of making our plays. So I like the 1 jumper in here. It lets us fetch it whenever we want with any of these 4. If teleport comes back to 2 or 3, then I'll consider playing more jumpers depending on the meta, but as of now, it's safer to just have the 1 copy of it when you need it with the Witch, and then, you know, like when teleports around, it's just so much easier to just teleport this thing as needed. But, you know, for now, just play the 1 copy, and I think you'll be happy with the results there. Now to talk about some of the tech cards that really glue the strategy together on its 2 fronts. So first thing is, I love triple Torrential Tribute in this deck because this is what makes it so that when you summon your Serene Psychic Witch or set it turn 1, you're not giving your opponent too much ground to make advantage on top of you, because you can go and kill your Witch and their field at any vulnerable stage, and then you're triggering your card to set up for a strong second turn by banishing whatever you need. It also works nicely with the zombie side when you're able to go Omega, because Omega can dodge this, so you're not losing anything no matter what. So I really do like the Torrential Tribute. A lot of people don't expect it, especially going into the first turn, but it's a really powerful way to supplement that first turn Serene Psychic Witch play. Similarly, Rise to Full Height is a card I like playing at 3. I know this is kind of like a cheese card. People tech it every so often in Omega.deck, but if you've never seen this card before, it basically lets you target a monster on the field that's face up, but it could be anywhere, your opponent's as well. Double its defense, but make its defense 0 at the end of the turn. And you can banish this card from the graveyard during either turn, even the same turn it was sent there, to target a monster you control, and your opponent can only attack that monster the rest of the turn. They can't attack at any other time except to attack that monster, and you can only physically activate one copy of this card per turn. So this has 2 really cool applications. First, if I'm setting my Serene Psychic Witch and I just have Rise to Full Height, I set this. My opponent declares an attack on me, right? So they declare an attack on this. I activate Rise to Full Height and target their monster. It's sent to the grave. Now I can banish this and target this card, and then when it dies, they're not allowed to attack anything else besides that witch. So if they were going to kill me, their press failed, I get to go and make my strong second turn using the Serene Psychic Witch. On top of that, there are some other psychic monsters. Remember, Cleric has 2100 defense, so if you double that to 42, there's a good chance your opponent won't be able to touch that thing, even if they want to, once they've already entered the battle phase, and you flip this on them during the damage step. So very funny card in that sense. It's this is kind of like the looser side. I was like, hey, this actually kind of works for this, making sure that Serene Psychic Witch doesn't die. It's very similar to Spiritual Swords of Revealing Light, which I used to use in Banish Psychics, where you pretty much make it so your witch is the only thing that dies, and then you keep yourself alive with it. This essentially does the same thing. But the reason I chose Rise to Full Height and a full 3 copies is I want to see it every game for the easy Omega cheese. So Rise to Full Height, don't forget, banishes itself from the graveyard. And so the cool thing is you're easily able to set up scenarios where you have an Omega on the field, you have Rise to Full Height in the graveyard, or maybe it's even set during your opponent's turn, right? So let's say it's set, because if it's in the graveyard, you just skip this step. Your opponent's standby phase, you get to go and activate Rise to Full Height, and then in the standby phase, if you have nothing else to return, banish Rise to Full Height targeting your Omega, then return it to the graveyard. Then, your opponent gets 1 chance to make an action during their turn at the beginning of main phase 1. So, let's say they kaiju you. That'd be like the best case scenario. Oh, well, your Omega left the field, they're not allowed to attack you for the rest of the turn. Chances are they're not going to have a kaiju, though. And so if they don't, you can make your opponent, do whatever move, banish it, and then now they can't touch you at all. They lost a card from their hand, so they can't even make as strong of a play. Then this card comes back, and then next turn you could do it again. Even if you didn't get to return this to the graveyard that turn, just do it next turn as you need. You can always return this, banish it immediately, and so on. And this basically puts a soft lock on your opponent, where anytime you have Omega, which, trust me, with this deck is like all the time or you're doing something wrong, you're going to be able to lock your opponent out of attacking you. And so this card is just really fun in making sure that your Omega plays really pressure your opponent, your Witch and your other Psychics are able to claim their effects safely in the battle phase without you dying. It's just a really dumb card in general, but I think it's just really funny because no one expects this thing, and it puts in a lot more work than you would expect. Is it the best thing in the world? Like, is it perfect? No, your Omega can definitely get sniped by something like Solemn Strike or Ghost Ogre. But if your opponent doesn't have that, or if they choose not to main it, you could really give your opponent a bad time with this card. So I very much like that. And then I like 3 Scapegoat, because this basically puts a bunch of Earth monsters onto the field. So this is good for a lot of reasons. If I have a clear field with either of these guys dying, maybe with Torrential involved as well, I can rebuild my field very quickly. And on top of that, this card is very good at bringing out Saryuja Skulldread or Borolo Dragon if you can bring 1 more monster to the field. Between the floaters on the Psychic side and the free zombie monsters I can bring back thanks to Mizuki coming back every turn from Omega, I can guarantee I'm going to be able to get those guys out if I get the full, 3 to 4 tokens off of these guys. So very powerful. They're Earth, so I can make Naturia Beast or Mrs. Radiant off of them as well. Overall, just a very powerful way. The approach I took with this deck is the zombie side is really fast, and that's what I always go for if possible. But sometimes I'm forced to set the Witch to kind of get ready for a second turn, and in that case, I'd rather be able to gain a ton of advantage and or take control out of my opponent's field using Torrential. And so that kind of goes in both directions: hurt my opponent's field, build my own field to make sure I take advantage of having passed a turn by setting the Witch. And then some other tech cards to continue on here. Link Slayer is really cool on both sides. You can discard zombies or psychics for a Twin Twisters effect, and you bring back a free, or bring out rather, a free level 5 Earth monster. So make all the plays you want with Mrs. Radiant or whatever, turn it with one of your level 3 tuners, so Uni-Zombie, your hand traps, and make an Omega right there. This card's just really good at gluing the two sides together. Like, you would think, wow, what a weird tech choice, the starter deck card, but it really puts in work in this deck, so I definitely love that. Crane, I talked about that previous combo with Serene Psychic Witch, but it's also good because it's just a 1-card Mrs. Radiant. If Mrs. Radiant dies, you can go and use a Crane later to go and bring, you know, just another copy of her back because she recycles herself, or you could bring this back to your hand. And the cool thing with this is you're able to bring back Witch. Her effect triggers if she hits the grave. You can bring back any of the zombie or ghost ogre, you know, tuner monsters and make a play immediately off of that. So lots of cool things you can do. Puts 2 names on the board if you need it for Yugioh or for like a big link play. Just lots of really nice things that you're able to enable with just a normal summon for Crane. So it's basically putting 2 free monsters onto the field. I very much like this card. And then similarly, I like the copies of Monsterborn and Soul Charge in here because in a Synchro and Link-based deck like this, you're so easily able to take advantage of those monsters because it's not Xyz summoning where you don't have materials, or Pendulums where they don't go to the graveyard. These cards are very good not only for combos, but bringing back things like Omega or anything else that you may have landed in your graveyard. So definitely do recommend those. And then to finish out the main, I like 3 copies of Solemn Strike to kind of bolster the trickery we're doing with the other traps. It's also good when you have cards like Omega and Naturia Beast and you're able to control the game. Solemn Strike really helps address threats, whether they're established or about to be established. And that's why I chose this over some of the other cards like, you know, Bottomless or whatever. Yeah, you're taking a little bit of damage in order to set up your plays, but it's not as big a problem as if you were to play Solemn Judgment. That's why that card's not in here. You're taking too much damage with Witch if you don't have some support for it, but this tends to be a decent support because most of the time the 1500 ends up just giving you more benefit than you're actually losing. And finally, it's time to go through the rest of the extra deck in order to finish out this discussion. So for Link monsters, I play Link Karibo at 1, Mrs. Radiant and Proxy Dragon at Link rating 2, and then I play Borolo Dragon and Saryuja Skull Dread at Link 4. So Karibo is really in here just because you play the Scapegoat anyway, so you can bring him out once, maybe twice if you sack a token for it. It's a different name, it points downwards, there are a lot of random little things you can do with him, and then if you happen to leave him out, he's just a nice battle trick as well. Though usually you're covered on that front between your battle floaters and your Omega with the Rise to Full Height. Mrs. Radiant's in here because everything's Earth anyway. Crane can make it for free, Scapegoat can make it for free, and sometimes that's all you need, just, you know, the blanket boost and the 2 arrows for an easy Earth summon. So that's why she's in here. Then Proxy Dragon is just a generic card. You could very easily run Underclock Taker in a lot of times because just use Mrs. Radiant when you have the Scapegoats, right? But I do prefer the Proxy Dragon here because when you're able to link him up with a psychic monster that floats, you can kill that floater in exchange for protecting your entire board, which is actually a cheeky way to make sure that you have your entire plan stick while getting advantage off of your free cards. So I definitely love Proxy Dragon for that. But a lot of times you're using it as kind of a stepping stone for these guys. So especially Borolo Dragon, who needs 3 effect monsters. This card is just absolutely insane. I used to run Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree, in older variants of Psychics, and since this thing can't be targeted by monster effects, it's pretty much got that type of an ability, because, you know, a lot of the spells and traps your opponent's going to use probably won't be targeting this thing. And then the fact that you could steal your opponent's card is really cool, because that helps you get around annoying things like Honest or Grave effects, but you can also just use those monsters as Synchro material or Link material as well. So definitely recommend the Borolo. And then Saryuja, not as much of a focus on it in this deck as in the others, but every time I go Scapegoat, I find myself going into this thing just through Link Karibo, Proxy Dragon, and whatever monster I can normal or float into, because this card is still very powerful. You'll notice in here with the Torrential Tribute, it's a lot harder to justify playing like the Brilliant Fusion Engine for the Seraph Knight and the Saryuja there, but if you're able to bring this out, which you still can with all the free cards, you're able to go ahead and take advantage of the free draws, and then that's kind of all you need out of the Saryuja. Maybe the free special summon helps for making a big game-winning push as well. But those are in here for the Link monsters, and then for the Synchros, Beast is my only 5. Sometimes, like every so often, once in a blue moon, I wish I had Magical Android as a level 5 in here, just because it comes up sometimes where you have a 5, and then you want to use that with a level 3 tuner like Ghost Ogre to make a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. But in every other situation, I don't really care whether or not my monster is Psychic. Naturia Beast is obviously an extremely powerful card. You're playing Earths anyway, and so this is just the one card I felt deserves this slot. over anything else. At 6, I like playing HTS Psy-Framelord, and whoa, it's not Psychic Nightmare. Yeah, we're playing something different, guys. So HTS Psy-Framelord as a psychic monster that's DD Warrior Lady is really cool because you can try and banish your opponent's Dante or whatever else they're trying to use that's annoying you, and then if they go and stop you with a card that kills it, okay, it's a psychic in the grave, so you can just banish it and bring it right back. So they never really truly get rid of it. You can also do the same thing with this where you synchro with it and then bring it back, or you know, lots of things like that. So that helps you go for Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, and then just random things. It's a 2400 attack Earth monster, so it ends up becoming 2900 attack DD Warrior Lady with Mrs. Radiant, so that's really cool. And then Stardust Charge Warrior, mainly it's in here because we don't have Mrs. Radiant as our main Link monster all the time anymore, because you have access to Saryuja and Borolo Dragon. So what I usually do with this is just use it for the draw. Go Crane, bring this thing out for free, and then you draw a card, so then you used one card to make this, and then you gained a card back, so you basically made this thing for free. And then you can also use this guy for a synchro play into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon or something as well, off of like an Esper Girl or Psychic Jumper, so very useful card. It basically lets us take advantage of the fact that Crane goes into this for free, and then it will give us a card back for free as well. At 7, I like Black Rose Dragon and Psy-Framelord Zeta. So Black Rose, basically this is like Torrential Tribute, but you trigger it whenever you want, and it kills back row as well, so very powerful. We don't have Glow Up Bulb or Dandy, because Dandy's banned now, so can't use that second ability, unfortunately, but it's still a very powerful card in this strategy, and I would recommend playing it, because everything you have floats or dodges anyway. It just fits with the theme. Zeta is very similar as well. He can dodge, and he takes an opponent's attack position special summon monster with him, so usually that's going to take a Link monster out of the equation, and make it so your opponent can't Link combo for the turn, and then when it comes back, its arrows may no longer be relevant. So this is basically just the level 7 version of Omega. Not quite as powerful or versatile because that's its only effect, and your opponent needs to have, although it's a pretty broad, type of card, a specific type of monster in its position, in attack position on the field. But definitely like this thing. Again, it's another Psychic, so you can bring this back from the graveyard as well. And then I already talked about the 2 Omegas, but then the last cards are a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, and Trishula. So Crystal Wing, you easily make off of Psy-Framelord and Charge Warrior, sometimes Beast. Usually I'll only do that if I can like reborn this thing, or if my opponent has already gone through and used all their spells. But it's an option. Having this control effect is very powerful, and since we're not using Mrs. Radiant anymore as our main monster for Link, that wind attribute matters a lot less, and you're not losing attack to monsters that aren't level 5 or higher, which is nice. Scarlight lets you go and blow up the field. That could mean that you trigger like your Hush Psychic Cleric if you summon off of Witch or something. Do keep in mind though, if you summoned a Witch off of this, Witch will miss timing because you're burning in between it being sent to the grave and when it would trigger. So, don't use this so much for the combos, as you can clear your opponent's field and then push for game with this card. It basically is your Black Rose for level 8s. That's the way I see this card. And then Trishula at 9 is in here because you're making so many 3s and bringing back so many free 3s between Crane and your zombie monsters that Trishula is even easier to summon in this build than some of the other Psychic decks I've put up as of late, and it's just as powerful now because everything it hits becomes valuable. If you watched the video in its entirety, thanks! Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing this profile as much as I did putting it together for you. We'll start off with the main deck here. So we have triple Ash Blossom, double Crane, lone Esper Girl, double Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, double Hush Psychic Cleric, triple Link Slayer, double Mizuki, one Psychic Jumper, triple Serene Psychic Witch, triple Shiranui Solitaire, Silent Psychic Wizard, and then double Uni-Zombie. Then for spells we have E-Telly, Monster Reborn, triple Scapegoat, and Soul Charge. And then for traps we play a full 3 copies of Rise to full height, triple Solemn Strike, and triple Torrential Tribute for a 40 card main deck. And then for our extra here we play Link Kuriboh at Link rating 1, Mrs. Radiant and Proxy Dragon at 2, Borolo Dragon and Saryuja, Skull Dread at 4. Then for synchros, Naturia Beast at 5, HTS Psy-Framelord and Stardust Charge Warrior at level 6, Black Rose Dragon and Psy-Framelord Zeta at 7. Then for 8s we have Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, double Psy-Framelord Omega, and Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, and then finally the mighty Trishula at level 9. That's the end of this video, but if you'd like to see more of this series, you can click the annotation on the right, or you can see the last video I did by clicking the one on the left. If you enjoyed, I encourage you guys to leave a like and share it with others you think who may enjoy it as well. And if you'd really like to see more updates, then subscribe to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.